What's up, guys? This is Adi again with Rios International, and we are here for the third daily transfer roundup. As we've said for the last couple of days, we are going to be doing transfer roundups all the way through the deadline. We've got about a week left before the deadline shuts off, and then the transfer window is essentially over for most places in Europe. So we're going to review everything that happens, no matter how many rumors there are, no matter how many signings occur. We're going to review everything for you. But before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, whether you're listening to podcast audio or following us on YouTube. Every engagement helps us find more red and white fans. So if you like what you see, if you like the work that we're doing, please subscribe. Please consider also joining us on Patreon as well. For $1 a month, you can access the WhatsApp group where we give plenty of information that we don't always share on social, and always before we share it on social media for the stuff that we do. So consider checking it out. You also can get access to extra content there as well. So let's get into it. This is the third daily transfer roundup, and there's plenty of stuff to talk about once again. And we're going to get started by talking about David Carmo. We know that the David Carmo deal is done. He is expected to be in Athens before the Kalithea game. So he's supposed to be in Greece this weekend, completing his medicals and available for us to see or announced, I should say, at the game in Kalithea. Now, the deal, as reported, is for 11 million euros with 5 million euros of bonuses and a 10% retention by Porto. So, if the bonuses are activated or if the criteria is met for those bonuses, this would be the most expensive transfer in our club history. But as of right now, at 11 million, it is not. The bonuses have to be activated for that to be the case, but it has the potential to be the most expensive transfer in our club's history. Now, there's a slight disagreement in the reporting over the financing of the deal. So, Portuguese journalists like Bruno Andrade had stated that this deal is going to be financed by Forest versus others, and in Greek media didn't clarify how it was financed, which means it was probably Olympiakos. So, Forest has denied that they have any involvement in this deal. But looking at the deal and the hypotheticals here, there's only two ways that this could work, whether Olympiacos are financing the deal or Forest are financing the deal. And the important thing to bear in mind here is that depending on how this deal was done, this impacts the likelihood of us not only keeping Santiago Eze, but also signing Daniel Podence. So let's start with Forest. And I'm going to be clear again, Forest has denied any involvement in the financing of this deal. But if let's say Forest were to be the ones that finance this deal, they have their own PSR troubles. They have to make player sales as well. And for them to comfortably bring in a player like David Carmel, they would have to sell a player like Worrell, like Joe Worrell, their other defender. So for this deal to make sense with a limited impact, or I should say with a zero impact on their balance sheet, we have to talk about player amortization. This is something that in the Patreon content that you can view, I did a whole video about how player fees are amortized and how they hit the books. And if this were going to be done by Forest, the way it would have to be structured for it to make sense for PSR for them is that the player would have to sign for Forest for 5 years, and then you could amortize the fee over the course of the 5 years. Now, in this case, let's say we're talking about 15 million, right? And the 15 million fee gets amortized over 5 years. That's 3 million euros per year. So that means every year the amortized liability of the fee would be 3 million euros. So if as long as Forest loans him to Olympiacos for a 3 million euro loan fee, there would be no negative impact for PSR for the books. Now, look, this is a very simplified way to say this because there, as I said in the video that I did for Patreon, it is a little bit more complicated, but basically, for this to make sense for PSR, Forest would have to loan him to us for a 3 million euro fee over the course of each season he's playing for us for this to have a negative impact or for this to have a net zero impact on their PSR at a 15 million euro fee. Now, if Olympiakos is the one that's purchasing this, which this is the assumption we're going with currently. As I mentioned before, Nottingham Forest has denied any involvement with the purchase of David Carmo. 11 million plus the bonus, the 15 million euro total fee altogether, including the bonuses. Olympiakos would amortize the fee over the 5 years. And this is a big hit for Olympiakos to take, even if it's amortized over the course of 5 years. Now, a way that Olympiakos could delay the impact on the reporting in the reporting periods is depending on the number of installments that need to be made. If more installments are going to be made, then Olympiakos can delay the amortized liability. I discussed this in the very first daily transfer roundup with Costa. So this is huge because if option A occurs, like if Forest finances the deal, and stomaching a 3 million fee per year is easier than us having to stomach paying 11 to 15 million or having to put that on our books ourselves. It's much harder for us to do than if we just take a 3 million euro fee from a loan, and then we would be able to, in the future, finance a Podence move, potentially without having to sell Santiago Heze. However, if Olympiacos is the team, which as it stands, this is the case, we purchased David Carmo on our books, and we're financing this, and the amortization of the player fee is fully on us. It gives us much less wiggle room to sign a player like Daniel Podence without having to sell somebody. And this is where the big issue comes in. And this will put strain on Olympiakos' books moving forward, especially if you don't make a sale. As I told you guys in the first daily roundup, if Olympiakos signed Carmo and Daniel Podence, I do not see how we could keep Santiago Heze and meet FFP. We would have to sell Santiago Heze. And we'll get into Santiago Heze in a second. But this is the situation. So one way or another, David Carmo is going to be here. We're expecting him to be presented by Monday before the Califea game, or at least in the stadium for the Califea game, I should say. The question is the vehicle, the financing, and how this will impact a move for Daniel Podence. And we'll probably get a better idea of what the actual case is closer to the deadline, whether or not Daniel Podence arrives. And we're going to see what the impacts of this are and what could happen if we decide not to pursue Daniel Podence. So let's talk about a little bit about Santiago Heze. There's no new news about Santiago Heze. I told you yesterday about the rumored fee from Newcastle, and I told you guys if the 25 million comes, he's gone. And this doesn't feel like it's out of the blue, because it's no coincidence that you are seeing across Greek media that we have interest in Vélez midfielder Christian Ordóñez. Costa brought this up in the first daily transfer roundup. He's the player. He comes from the exact same club as Francisco Ortega. He's only 20 years old, and he plays a similar role as Santiago Heze. Now, of course, once if he signs, we will evaluate the player and really discuss whether or not this is an Adi Heze or a real Heze replacement or not. But it is no coincidence that the rumors of and the reports of our interest in this player are popping up on the news of a potential sale of Santiago Heze. It makes sense. It makes sense that we would have to sell Santiago Heze to finance the deal for Podence and maybe other players that we want to bring in, like a left back. But the whole thing, there's no coincidence here. So just keep an eye out on this, because there's a lot of pieces that are working, and there's a lot that can still happen by the end of the deadline. But there is a reason why we are looking at a similar mold of player, And it's not because we just want to pick up a 20-year-old midfielder in an already pretty stacked midfield that we have. We are probably looking at a future replacement for Santiago Eze. And then the question becomes, how do we replace him, in the now? But that's something that we will discuss moving forward. The next point of discussion is Andreas Doy. Andreas Doy has been in discussions with the club for a renewal. The club rejected an offer from Sevilla. There was a report of a pretty nice offer from Sevilla for Andreas Doy, but it sounds like we want to keep him. You guys know Andreas Doy is a versatile player. Sure, we weren't all happy with how he played as a center back, but he has looked very good playing in that holding midfielder role, or I should say, maybe as a ball winning midfielder. Not quite as good as anticipating as some of our other midfielders, but he's aggressive and he's a good ball winner. So he's done very well in that role so far, and it looks like we probably want to keep him so we can have that versatility and extra depth in the midfield. There was another rumor about a goalkeeper from FC Noah, the Armenian club that ousted Ike from the Conference League. I'm going to butcher this name, Ogyen Kancerovic, but the rumor originated from a social media account with like 200 followers. So I saw it pop up in Greek media, including Dodeka, and it doesn't feel like it's a reliable rumor. Besides, look at the goalkeepers we have. We just renewed Zolakis, who's our number one moving forward. We recently renewed Paschalakis, and he's making a lot of money. And then we just signed the goalkeeper from Kifisia, Anagnostopoulos. So there's no way we're interested in another goalkeeper. Especially a 34-year-old goalkeeper. I don't believe that for a second. So moving on from that, there's also some news about Andre Horta. Andre Horta is back on the menu. So discussions look like they're continuing with Braga for the player sale to Olympiakos after the deal was originally frozen. If you guys remember, there wasn't much news coming out of Greece about this. And then later on, after the event happened, there were differing reports about whether it was Braga at fault for this or whether it was Olympiakos. But according to the Portuguese report, Horta was on the way to the airport, maybe even at the airport. And then Greek reports later on, after the deal was frozen, quote unquote, or canceled, Greek reports had mentioned that it was Braga that was trying to change things last minute. But look, whatever happened, the deal froze and discussions are back. So the club is trying again towards the end of the deadline to bring back Horta. So we'll see what happens. There was another bit that was included in Greek media that it was Carvajal that denied the transfer of Horta because he didn't want him to go before he actually signed for Braga. One way or another, whatever happened. But Horta, there are discussions happening again for the player, and he would be a really important attacking piece for us to have to give us a little bit more creativity in the final third. The final piece for our transfer roundup today is going to be back to a player we've talked a little bit about before, and that's Horta Silva. Horta Silva is a winger that was signed by Nottingham Forest. And this is also picking up steam in Greece. It's being talked about as an option that's going up there. The player was announced by Forest. He has a number, but he hasn't yet played in an official match. And don't be surprised if he does not play an official match, especially until the transfer window shuts. And I don't necessarily think personally, this is my opinion, that we will see this player, that this is a guarantee he's going to come. We've always talked about that there's a possibility there, that there's a road for this player to come to Olympiacos. And again, I can't speak to the player or agent side. You don't know if this is something that was discussed with them when they were brought into the club, but I'm talking about the situation and how things have gone between Forest and Olympiacos. But we've been talking about this as a possibility for a very long time. But certain things had to line up. Forest needed to sign a couple more wingers. They did sign one, Ramon Sosa, and it sounds like they're looking for another one as well. And I get the feeling, and I've said this before, that if we do not sign Daniel Podence, don't be surprised if Horta Silva makes his way on a loan to Olympiacos. Don't be surprised. Again, there's no coincidences here. There's a reason why we are hearing these things. And some of these are picking up steam because these are very real possibilities. Obviously, the club wants Daniel Podence, and I'm sure Daniel Podence is the priority right now, especially since David Carmo's here. But again, don't be surprised if if Wolves hold out and they don't want to budge from the 10 million, despite what we've been told about, maybe they'll go down to 7.5. Maybe they don't budge, then we still need wingers. And this would be a very quick way for us to get ourselves a winger, especially last minute. So there's going to be plenty of action, plenty of drama in the transfer deadline. We've still got about a week to go. And as we've already seen, so much can happen in just a couple of days. So have some patience, Olympiacos fans. The team is almost complete. We do not need much to really get things moving. Mendilibar only wants a 23-man squad. Maybe he does 24, 25 players at the most. But we've got a nice blend right now of youth. We have the academy players. The press looks very good. We look organized. So the team is almost there. Just a few more pieces. I shouldn't even say a few, a couple more pieces, and this team is ready to compete. So have some patience. We'll have more for you tomorrow in the next daily transfer roundup. My name is Adi. This is Trios International, by the fans for the fans, and we'll see you next time.